Okay, today we're going to talk about 12 harsh sales truths that founders need to hear. And, I'm just going to start with a little bit of a warning. Ignore these at your peril. I've worked with a lot of startups over the last 8 years, and often this is the difference between companies, stagnating for years at best, and companies that actually like totally flatlining. And then, on the other hand, like companies going on to do really well, and companies kind of winning. So let's jump right into it. The first one, look, being a founder is a sales job. You are going to be selling to customers, employees, candidates, and investors forever. If you don't like that, you need to go and do something else, because this is a sales job. It will always be a sales job. And this might be you, but I can't sell. Look, you're going to learn. You're going to learn because also, like, if you can't sell the product, a salesperson isn't going to fix your problems. You need to sell because A, you need the money. Often, like, if you go and hire before you're at a couple $100,000 in ARR, you will hire the wrong person. You do not kind of have the ability to hire good people, because all of the good salespeople are going to ask very pointed questions that you're not going to be able to answer because you have not had enough customer conversations. The second one, you might need to hire a salesperson, frankly, just from a purely financial reason, especially if you haven't started with $10 million in funding. But then the third thing as well is, like, customers want to hear from you, and I think you need to get this in your head. Like, by getting into sales and doing the selling, you're going to make every other part of your business so much better, right? So as you, the founder or one of the founders, getting on the sales calls, you'll be learning all of the objections that customers have. This will help you with your marketing. You'll be getting insight into what the customers want built. Again, this will help you with your product. And you'll be improving your sales skills, which is going to help you recruit great people. It's going to help you, have a much easier time with investors. And of course, it is going to bring in a whole lot of money. So while this might be you today, I don't know how to sell, don't worry. There are plenty of people out there that can help you. This is going to be you in not very long. And, I think it's one of like the best skills that you can actually learn. So a salesperson, they're not going to fix your problems. Now, the third one, delegating away sales is the number one reason that early stage companies fail. Until you are at 500K or more in annual recurring revenue, you need to be the one who does the selling. So a little flow chart here. Do we bring on a salesperson? Well, are we at 500K or more in ARR? If so, yes, like, you are now eligible to hire a salesperson. If the answer is no, not yet. You need to just do a few more reps, sell a bit more stuff, and then, you'll be good to go. Now, the third thing, right, if you're coming from this world of, we'll just do product-led growth, we'll just kind of lead with marketing and paid ads and all that sort of thing. That's fine if you want to stay under 5K in deal size, just like forever for the rest of your company's life. Because if you're selling to big companies and if you're selling with kind of like any real deal size, you're going to run into a whole lot of friction. This is by design. Big companies don't want it to be super easy for all of their employees to buy stuff whenever they want, right? If we think about this, imagine like your CFO. We can't let people, spend whatever they want whenever they want. Big companies have legal departments. They're thinking about liability. Big companies have IT departments. They're thinking about cybersecurity. There is a reason that, salespeople as a general rule exist specifically within B2B organizations. It's not because companies love spending huge amounts of money and huge amounts of time managing these massive sales forces. Now, this is a really dangerous one. Our sales cycle is long and we sell into the enterprise. It's an excuse that early stage founders love to give, when they're, again, trying to delegate away from sales, but they do have that larger deal size, or they're talking to slow moving institutions, think academia, or selling into any sort of government, or selling into non-profits. That is cope. You still need to get to the 500K in ARR. Look, if you're at 450, fine, go and hire a salesperson. but you really need to be in that kind of ballpark. So when we think about sales, it's labor leverage, right? If you're familiar with Naval's work, he talks about the 4 types of leverage: labor, capital, code, and media. Sales is labor leverage. It doesn't scale as well as marketing or engineering can. A great salesperson is someone who comes in at 200% to plan. That is not a 100x engineer. That is not a viral piece of content that gets you 20 million impressions. And just to give you like a visual representation of this, in a different industry, for every one manufacturing worker in the entire US auto sector, there are 2 people who work on the retail side actually selling the product. So if you think about this, like in terms of sales, think distribution, right? And just think about like how much of the world around you is focused on distribution. The next one, this is a really common, I think, stereotype that's just wrong. Salespeople are not necessarily entrepreneurs. Most entrepreneurs are great salespeople, right? Because we've talked about this, like being a founder is a sales job, but most salespeople are not entrepreneurs. So it's like a one-way correlation. Now, if you think about risk tolerance, and we just think about like a population graph here, the average person is somewhere in the middle. Maybe on the left, we've got people who work for very big organizations or people who work for the government. And then we've got founders way out on the right, especially bootstrap founders. And then a little bit further in on the risk curve is people who join early stage startups. So, just something to keep in mind, salespeople are not often these risk-taking like fiends that you might think they are. They do, they take more risk than the average person, but odds are that they're probably taking less than you. Next one, engineers want to solve hard problems. Salespeople want to sell water in the desert. There are those sayings, he can sell sand in the desert. Not really true. Like if you're a salesperson, you want to sell something that prospects buy because you're punished financially for selling something that people don't want. If you're a salesperson selling sand in the desert, odds are you die of dehydration. It's not a good move. A lot of companies will say, well, good salespeople should want to be challenged. It's cope. Like if you had a good product, you would not struggle to find really good salespeople. Next one, your first salesperson should probably be a mid-market account executive, and you should probably hire 2. We'll talk about why hiring a VP of sales as your first salesperson is a terrible idea in a second, but let's talk about why you need to hire 2. So if you hire 1 account executive, you're going to have one of 3 outcomes, and there are no other outcomes actually outside of this. You're going to have an AE who does really well, which is great, but you don't know how to replicate it. Is it because your product is fantastic? Is it because your account executive is fantastic? No idea. You actually have absolutely no idea. Now, what if you have like a really middling kind of performance? Well, the problem with that is, a salesperson, they might bring in twice as much as you paid them last year. So financially, like they're kind of break even, they're pretty marginal. But what you've done is you've started to create a culture of complacency. The one thing that kind of distinguishes a sales team from every other part of the company is this is like an objective department. You can point to someone and be like, yep, Sally, she's the number 1 saleswoman on the team, and it's not even close. Oh, that guy Jim, yeah, he's at the very bottom of the leaderboard. Like if he doesn't pick up his performance, he's going to get fired. And salespeople are fine with that. Like the only salespeople who aren't fine with that are the ones you want to fire, frankly. Like it's part and parcel of the game. It's part and parcel of the compensation plan. So a middling performance, it might seem fine, but it is a very, very toxic thing. You do not want that festering in your organization. Then we've got the third kind of outcome, which is poor performance, right? And again, it's the inversion of the high performance. We don't actually know why this person did badly, right? Because we're not split testing. Maybe they're a terrible salesperson. Maybe the product is terrible. Maybe you've got something else that's broken, but you're not going to know. You're going to spend a whole lot of money, and you're kind of going to be flying blind. So the problem with all of this, right, is like you hire 1 sales rep, you're a year down, no matter the outcome, you're actually still as blind as you were before you hired them. Okay, let's talk about why hiring a VP of sales is almost always a terrible idea. And there is a caveat here. Look, if you sold your last company for $1 billion, then you don't really have to listen to this because you're playing from a very different frame. But most people watching this are not coming in with this. And the core problem with a VP of sales is that they're going to cost you at least $2 million in their first 18 months. So if we look at this kind of diagram here, this is like a fairly common setup for a VP of sales. They're either this yellow dot or this green dot. Either way, they are managing at least one team, possibly two, right? So if we think our VP of sales, they're probably going to cost us about 500 grand per year by the time you pay for their base and their variable and then just associated hiring costs. But each of these account executives are going to cost you, not including their variable, about $180,000 each. Each of these director of sales, like $350,000, possibly more by the time you fully load them in. So like, unless you're ready to spend upwards of $2 million in the next 18 months on your sales team, you shouldn't hire a VP of sales, because a VP of sales is not there to come in and close a whole lot of business. A VP of sales is there to come and build a team and really scale up your revenue engine. Next thing, it's a lot harder to sell without a big brand behind you. So you might hire this person and they're crushing it at a megacorp. Maybe they're at somewhere like Oracle, right? Oracle have so much money that they're able to sponsor Formula One teams. They're able to sponsor sailboats. Same thing with Salesforce. Same thing with any of these companies that have big billboards and international airports. They are coming in with a massive brand behind them and makes booking meetings significantly easier. It's one of those truisms, like however much you think having a brand behind you helps, you are still underestimating it, even if you keep that in mind. Now, the final one is you shouldn't need to sell a rep on joining an early stage startup. It should either be a hell yes or a hell no on their end. So don't try and be like Leonardo DiCaprio in The Wolf of Wall Street and talk them into it. You are only going to set yourself up for pain in the future. These are the 12 harsh truths. Now, if you found this interesting, I've got a 44-minute video. I'm going to link to it like up here, and it's going to go into everything I talked about with a ton more detail. So check it out if you found this interesting, and I'll see you soon. Cheers.